It has been a while. Welcome back to the cave. I'm going to call it the Wren Cave. That's from now on. That is the name for this room. It's called the Wren Cave, at least until, you know, my wife kicks me out, and then it's the spare bedroom. Anyhow, thank you for joining us today. It's been a while. I've got kind of a mess here, so give me a couple seconds to clean this up, and we'll get into today's video. See you guys. Thank you very much, and welcome to the Renaissance Builder. So today's video is all about the latest iteration of our ice chest air conditioners. Now, the point of this next iteration, I guess, this next type of ice chest air conditioner is more of a personal nature. Not personal in that it matters that much to me, but personal as in it's designed to cool one person. So I'm going to throw a link to my last version of chiller style ice chest air conditioner right up here in this corner over here. But that one is more or less a room or small space air conditioner. The larger radiator and the mini fans means it's going to do a better job of cooling a small space such as a room or like a van or, you know, a small camper kind of thing, even a tent. But this version is more geared towards cooling off a person. So that's what we're going for here. Now, I'd like to talk about some of the parts because we're dealing with better parts in this situation. For one, we shrank down the radiator to now it's only a 120 millimeter radiator. Now these radiators you can buy from places like Amazon or Newegg or any computer store, and you might ask, why are we buying a radiator from a computer store? Well, that's because these radiators are actually designed for computer cooling loops. So that's what they're designed for, and that's where you would get them. However, they work perfectly in our application. Like, you can't get any better than this. They really are very nice. Hey guys, so it turns out over 90% of you all that are watching this video are not subscribed. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a thing, and it helps out the channel a lot. To outfit your radiators, you're going to need, like I said, this is a 120 millimeter radiator, so you're going to need a 120 millimeter computer case fan or 120 millimeter 12 volt fan. Doesn't necessarily have to be a computer case fan, but in this case we're using the Noctua Chromax just because Noctua makes a very reliable fan, and the last time I went cheap the fan took a crap on me, so we're not doing that again. The other thing you're going to need to fit out the radiator are these here fittings, and I can show you right there. These fittings are called a G 1/4 by 3/8 ID fittings. Well, 3/8 barbed fitting. So it's a G 1/4 by 3/8 barbed fitting. Again, you can buy them in the same place, Amazon or Best Buy or Newegg, wherever, to go with the radiator. And the reason they're called a G 1/4 instead of a, say, you know, tapered thread or just 1/4 inch is because it's gasketed. There's actually a gasket in the fitting right in there and the threads, which in our situation is just another bonus because we don't have to worry about leaking. You don't have to worry about thread sealant. You don't need pipe dope. You don't need pipe tape. None of that. It's a gasket. Just thread it in. So those literally, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just start, and you only need to be hand tight, honestly. I mean, you can get the wrench out if you want, but it's not really going to do you that much good. So that's the radiator. Now, the one thing I really, really want to point out to you guys is this here tubing. Now, this took me a while to find the perfect tubing for this application. And you might be asking yourself or saying to yourself right now, what does the tubing matter? Well, if you intend to use this thing more than just once, then the tube, if you use that cheap vinyl tubing, you would very quickly find out why I wanted to avoid that. The point of this cooling unit is to be able to take the radiator and put it right next to you. Whether it be on a table, whether it be on the arm of a chair, or wherever you want to put it, you can literally set the cooling unit next to you so that it's in your personal space and cooling you off. Because of that, the hoses that we use need to be flexible and light and sturdy enough that we're not going to have a bunch of kinks and everything happening in the tubing, because that just ruins the tubing. And vinyl tubing is going to go to crap in a handbag faster than you can spit 3 times. Take my word on it. So, it took me a while to find the perfect tubing for this application, but I found it. This is silicone tubing. And again, you can buy it on Amazon. It's not that difficult to get. I will throw a description down there. I can't link it because my channel's not big enough yet. So, you know, hit that subscribe button. If you guys hit the subscribe button, the channel gets big enough, I can actually throw you links in there to take you right to the products. But for now, I can just give you a description. So this is 3/8 ID silicone tubing. I happen to have a 50-foot roll because at the time they didn't have the 10-foot roll in stock, but you know, whatever. I figure I'll probably use it on other stuff too. The tubing is rigid enough to do the job, but it's also, it has, I believe it's called an elastic memory. I'm not an engineer, so bear with me on this, but I believe it's called an elastic memory. In other words, when you put it into a particular position, it goes back to its normal shape very easily, which means you can kink it all day long. It doesn't care. Whereas a vinyl tube will eventually break at the kink. And no matter how much you kink it, it doesn't keep a memory of that kink, whereas a vinyl tube does. So this is by far way better than the vinyl tubing, and it just fits the bill perfectly. So I wanted to go over that. Now the ice chest, we're using the same, I think it's a 41 can ice chest. It's the same one that we used before, 28 quarts. There's really nothing special about the ice chest. You can use whatever ice chest you want. The bigger the ice chest, the longer the ice lasts. Well, the more of it you have to last, at least. So, you know, that's perfectly up to you guys where you want to go with that. The other thing we're doing differently on this unit is I wanted something that was completely self-contained. In other words, you can straight up fill it with ice and just pick it up by the handle, take it over to your beach spot or wherever it is, set it down, turn her on, and go. And to do that, I wanted to use a battery, and I'm like, well, I don't want to just use any old battery. I want something that's going to be worthy, like long-lasting, user-friendly. And I thought, at this point in time, and maybe this is first world problems, I don't know, but pretty much everybody has a power drill these days. So, or if you don't have a power drill, it's very easy to get a very inexpensive power drill with a battery and charger. I'm actually using the charger for the Milwaukee M12 series because I have Milwaukee M12 batteries. And this is what we're doing. I'm going to use the shell of the charger to act as a mounting basin for the battery so that it makes it very user-friendly. In other words, if when the battery dies, I plug it in a charger, I recharge it. I can take one of my spare batteries with me, so I have an extra one and just plug it in. So it makes powering the device completely standalone and very easy to manage. You guys don't have to use Milwaukee. You can use whatever you want. But know that if you are going to use the shell like I am, you're probably going to be sacrificing one of your chargers. So if you don't like that idea, then maybe come up with something else, whether it be, you know, just plugging into the battery yourself, but that can be tricky. So I guess attention to detail is what you would want to pay attention to. For me, it cost $20 for an extra charger. So, and I didn't even have to ruin the charger. The charger's still good. So we're good. So that's what we got going on. So with that being said, let's get into building this thing. All right, so the building of this ice chest air conditioner really isn't that difficult, and it's not that much different than what we've done in previous videos. But we'll walk through it, and hopefully, you guys learn something or you want to copy it. It's not that difficult. So first, we already put the fittings on. Like I said, all you got to do is screw them in. It's not that difficult. So we screwed the fittings in. We're going to mount the fan. We're mounting the fan in a specific position. So I want the fan, so you'll notice the fittings are right on this side. I want the fan to be mounted on that side as well with the fittings, because I want the center of gravity of this unit to force it to lean on the tubing. So when you set it down, it will stay there on its own and not fall over. That's what I'm going for, at least. If I can avoid having to make some kind of fancy stand for it, then it just saves us, time and money. So that's what we're going for. So the fan, you want the fan to be on the fitting side, and you want it to blow into the radiator. If you look on the bottom of your fan, see if you can see it there, I don't know. There's an arrow on the bottom of your fan indicating which direction it's going to blow. In this case, since we are on the back side of the radiator, we want the fan to blow into the radiator. So we're going to go ahead and put that together right now. Now that the radiator is assembled, we have our fan on it and we have the G-quarter fittings on there. Now we're going to go ahead and cut the tubing. Now I personally figured about 4 foot of tubing would be comfortable. But you can cut the tubing however long you want, however short or longer. It is worth noting that if you're going to have a very long run of tubing, you might want to insulate it just so that it doesn't lose temperature or gain temperature as it's running through the tubing, because, that defeats the purpose of what you're trying to do. You don't want to cool everywhere else, you want to cool off yourself. Now that we have our tubing cut, I don't need the tape measure in the way, we can take, now you shouldn't need any fasteners when you assemble the tubing onto the barb fitting, because the barb fitting is designed to hold on to 3/8 tubing. However, if you really want to be safe about it, you're more than welcome to use fasteners. My recommendation is to use zip ties. Do not use hose clamps. Hose clamps are too much force, and they tend to cut up the tubing, which can actually create more leaks down the line. Whereas a hose clamp, a zip tie, creates just enough pressure on the joint to force it to seal, as well as hold the tubing on the joint itself. It actually works out quite well to use just zip ties for your joints, for your tubing joints. That actually applies to automotive as well, if you didn't actually know that. A good placed zip tie will actually go further, given the right application, obviously, but a good placed zip tie will actually go further than a hose clamp. Then you just trim off the extra. Now, if you don't know what I'm actually using to cut the tubing, this is just a standard PVC cutter that you can buy at like Lowe's or Home Depot, and it's really nothing fancy about it. You don't even need the ratcheting conversion. Put that out of the way. Now we have the tubing. So at this point, I'm going to want to add wiring to this, because whilst we have the tubing, we're also going to want to run wire along this line, and then we're going to take zip ties and fasten it together so it makes a nice cable that you can just, flex around and not worry about tripping over type stuff. So let's go ahead and get some wire. You only need 2 conductors, and we're also going to have to cut open the wiring harness for the fan and choose the correct 2 wires to power the fan with. So we'll go over that too. And you know, sometimes you just got to find out the hard way which one's positive and which one's negative. Now, at this point, I've gone through and tested the connectors, pulled up diagrams of the computer case pinouts to make sure that we get the right connections, because you can actually burn these things out. So if you want to know, it's on a computer case fan, it's pin 1 is ground, pin 2 is 12 volt DC. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're doing this. Also, on my battery, there's very, very fine markings on the battery itself as to which pin is what. As well as, if you pull out a digital multimeter, you can very quickly figure all these things out on your own without having to, you know, look up weirdly. But at this point, there's a couple things I want to do. We're actually going to pull out the hot glue gun, because the connector on the computer case fan, well, me being a genius, I cut the wrong end. So, anyhow, I think the term "can't lead a horse." You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. That probably fits. But what I have done is use several jumpers here, colored jumpers, to be able to make the connection. But because it's not a latched connection, I'm going to use the hot glue to hold this together. I don't have heat shrink big enough, so hot glue is the next best thing that I'm going to put around this connector to help hold it together. Just make sure it doesn't come apart. Electrical tape, that doesn't work. So we're not doing that. At the same time, whilst I have the hot glue heated up, I also took the liberty of figuring out how I wanted to attach the terminals to the base of the battery. So I have my charging base right here, and what I have in the battery is, you'll see those slots, and any of your batteries has the same thing. You either have male or female slotted connectors to make the connection for the battery to the utensil. Now, since my base plate came out without the metal pins attached, I have to add metal pins in, which is another perfect opportunity to use the hot glue gun. So we're going to do that whilst it's hot. Now, I also took the liberty of figuring out in my wiring harness which is positive and which is negative, so I can put this together in a way that I know will match, so that I can go to the other ends of the wiring harness and everything matches. Now, be careful at this point, because while I'm playing with these bare metal terminals, the battery's live, so you don't want to cross it. It might zap you. I mean, DC isn't that bad, but now we're just going to take the hot glue and smear this all up. So what I've done is I've taken flat spade connectors, and I've used the flat spade connectors to create the connection for the battery. So we just smear this all up. And this, hopefully the hot glue, is going to hold. Epoxy would honestly be better at this point, but hot glue is what we got. So hopefully the hot glue is actually going to hold those pins in position. And feel free to be, don't be conservative on this, because you don't want this coming apart on you. So the hot glue, yeah, you don't want that coming apart on you, because then you could end up sticking the battery in one day and it'd be like, nope. All right. Whew, that's a good amount of hot glue. So we're just going to give that time to set up. And at this point, that means the base of the charger is ready to be affixed to the top of the cooler. And we have our wiring leads run. And we have these wiring leads run so I can make the connections to the harness fairly easily. And yeah, pretty much everything is ready to go together. We got the tubes, we got the wiring. So at this point, we need to take the cooler and start attaching stuff to the cooler. So that's what's next. So at this point, we actually have a finished product. We finished the wiring. We went ahead and added the silicone tubing and we took all the components that we built, put it together. The pump is in the bottom. You don't really need an input screen to the thing, but if you want to, that's something that you guys can do. So it's all assembled. This really isn't that difficult of a build to do. Yes, it's a couple extra steps because, well, it's actually not. Believe it or not, it's not a couple extra steps. We only have one fan on one radiator with the tubing. Now, if you weigh this machine against, say, a easier or less complicated ice chest air conditioner, then yes, this is a few extra steps involved. We have the battery mount system. We have a computer radiator that requires the G1/4 fittings and the silicone tubing. But other than that, it's pretty much the same. So this is a perfect example of how adding a couple extra dollars into your project and a bit of attention to detail can result in something that is significantly easier to use and just a lot easier to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So at this point, we're ready to throw some ice and water in this thing and see how she does. Now it's time for testing this sucker out. Now, I have my handy dandy testo gauge here to measure the output temperature that this thing's going to give. Right now, the room temperature is sitting about 71 degrees. So it's really not all that hot in here. We do have air conditioning in this house. So it's really not all that hot in here. And I don't have a full load of ice in the cooler. I literally just put what I could get out of my refrigerator in there for now, just to show it functioning. I will do testing the next couple days. I will do testing to see how long the ice lasts in this machine, so that you guys have a general idea of what you can expect this to do, as well as how long the battery lasts, although that's going to be more relative to whatever battery you're using. So let's go ahead and start this thing up. Now, I didn't take the opportunity to put a switch in mine, but you can definitely do so. Just literally just put a toggle switch somewhere on it. It would not be that difficult to do. I just opted not to. So with that, all I got to do is plug in the battery to start her up. And there she goes. Now I'm going to go ahead and give this a... We're going to go ahead and give this a couple minutes to basically do its thing and sort of stabilize the output air temperature. I can tell you right off the get-go, it's a very quiet system. It does not blow an extremely large amount of air. It's... Quit saying Why am I stuck saying Oh, get out of it. So this thing seems to have stabilized at 43 degrees. Now that's a 43 degrees supply temperature, and we have 32 degree water temperature. And no, I didn't measure the water temperature, but basically anytime you have ice floating in water that has melted for a while, that stabilizes at 32 degrees almost exactly. That's a whole nother conversation about latent heat. But anyhow, so 32 degree water gets us 42 degrees supply air temperature, and that's from a 71 degree ambient air temperature. That's nearly 30 degrees delta T, which is massively awesome. Now, it's not a whole lot of air, but it's enough air that feels good. Oh yeah. You know what? I might just say screw it to the rest of the video and I'm going to enjoy this. There are ways you can tune this thing up if you do want to. I, for one, am going to experiment with a blower style fan mounted to the radiator that may make it even more, it may not have the supply air temperature, delta T is high, but it may be a little bit more of a forceful wind that feels better. So I'm going to try that, but that's something I have to experiment with because, well, the fan's kind of wrong. Either way, so yeah, you guys can play around with this. You can put different size radiators on it. You can put different fans on it. You can use whichever battery system you want to use. And, you know, that's up to you how you build your system. But this right here works exceedingly well. And I am very happy with this. Very happy. I mean, literally, look. I mean, this is no joke. This tubing flopping around, I can set this however I want. There's no problems. No problems at all setting this radiator wherever you want to set it. And that's the beauty of the silicone tubing. So I'm going to use that from now on. All my ice chest air conditioners for shizzle. I'll cut that out. Thank you very much, guys, for watching this version of our ice chest air conditioner. This took a little bit more to build just because, well, sometimes I don't always do the best job of having my stuff together when I make these videos. But that's my fault. So, it has been fun. I am really happy with this design for the air conditioner, the ice chest air conditioner. And I'm going to say this, a little sneak peek of what's to come. I have definitely figured out a way to use dry ice in an ice chest air conditioner. Now that's a game changer. That's a massive game changer. And the reason it's a game changer is because dry ice itself maintains a very high amount of thermal load. In other words, I have to add a lot of heat to it before it goes and evaporates. So that means I can use dry ice in this thing and it stays cold for a lot longer. Like, hopefully all day kind of situation. So that's going to be a game changer. So I have figured that out. So definitely make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell icon. You know, it's right down here. Hit that subscribe and bell icon to make sure you actually see when that, because there's going to be a couple videos out when I come up with that, and you guys will love it. You want to stick around for that video, I promise you. So that's it, guys. That's all I got for this video. The ice chest air conditioner works great. I'm happy with it. Hopefully you're happy with it. Go on to make your own ice chest air conditioners, and I think you'll be just as happy with yours as I am with mine. Thank you very much. I appreciate the views, the subscriptions, and everything you guys bring to the channel. So, that being said, you guys have a good night. I'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.